I'm Clive Rossfield, brother and shield of Joshua, and you're watching Primalliquid.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Primalliquid, and we have just a truly astronomical event for us right now. We are here at a Nis America event, and we are interviewing somebody very, very special. Please allow me to introduce you to Nick. Nick, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick. I'm a media relations coordinator, a member of the marketing team for Nis America. And yeah, we're very happy to have you and several other members of the media and creators here to try out Disgaea 7 as well as a couple of other upcoming titles.
Thank you very much. Now, obviously, you just mentioned Disgaea 7 and some other titles. I will be making definitely a lot of videos on the other titles as well, but specifically for the interview purpose, I'd like to talk to you about Disgaea 7. I know the fan base got a little decisive in the previous release with so many changes, and now we are essentially going back to its roots. Was this definitely intentional, or is it just a byproduct of another decision that was made?
Got it. So yeah, no, the decision to kind of return Disgaea to its roots, to return to our roots in Disgaea 7, was brought on by some of the feedback we got from Disgaea 6. Fan feedback was absolutely taken into consideration during the development of Disgaea 7 for both new features and some returning features and how we could update or change them. For instance, some of the returning features that have gone through some changes, autobattle is the biggest one. So we got a lot of feedback about autobattle in Disgaea 6, and while it wasn't a feature that we wanted to get rid of entirely, we knew that some changes had to be made. And so in order to kind of get back to our roots, and what we mean by that is truly capturing what makes a Disgaea game a Disgaea game. You know, freedom, player freedom, freedom of movement, freedom to play the way that you want to, and appealing to not just new fans, which was a big emphasis in Disgaea 6. You know, with this many titles in, we wanted to try and appeal to new fans in the series, but also how can we at the same time give our veteran fans what it is that they love about this series, what it is that they want. And so one of the changes to autobattle is that you now have to manually complete a stage first before you can use autobattle in that stage. And an additional change that we've made in order to add a little bit more thought to it and a little bit more strategy to it if you want to use it, is that there's now a cost associated with using autobattle as well, called poltergas. And essentially the more turns that it takes you to clear a stage in autobattle, the more poltergas is used. And so you do still have to kind of put some thought into autobattle and be a little bit careful. As far as return to our roots and kind of a return to form, that was incorporated into the development of the new features as well. The big one, pun intended, is jumbification, as you got to experience in the hands-on playthrough. So jumbification is the ability to supersize your characters to kind of kaiju level height. And not only was this an idea that was included in the game just because it's fun, you know, and it kind of fits the tone of Disgaea, but it also allowed players to have a situation where they can attack enemy units from anywhere on the stage. Because your character is so big, they're able to attack any enemy unit anywhere on the stage, no matter where, like what side of the stage you jumbify on. And that was definitely taken into consideration, was how can we make it so players can have this freedom of movement that they've never had before, free range. On top of that, you can also use jumbification to attack other jumbified units. You can kind of have these battles between these two like tallest skyscraper units. And then there's additional abilities as well that are brought to the table with jumbification, jumbilities. So when your character is jumbified, these specific abilities, they don't just apply to them, but they also apply to other units on the stage as well. And so the reason that this feature has all these different mechanics and different nuances and stuff is because of that freedom of play that we want people to have, the freedom to play how you want. And so we wanted to make sure that these features weren't just added for the sake of being something new and something fun, but also how can they incorporate what it is we're trying to do with Disgaea 7 mechanically.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the best things about Disgaea itself as a whole series. As you go through from Disgaea 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, each game does typically bring a new feature or a new gimmick to it, and jumbification most definitely fits in the Disgaea series. It's fun, it's crazy, it's a little out there, but it still sort of follows the theme of the Neverworld effects from previous Disgaea titles, or pirate ships and things like that. It gives you that excitement, and as you say, it allows you to clear whole fields at once, which is most definitely a very big benefit in a game what can be quite grindy, like Disgaea 7. Specifically with regards to the auto battle, I know you just sort of cleared all that up. Was that probably the biggest thing that you received sort of complaints about, or would you say it was more the higher numbers?
I'm not sure which we received more feedback about, the auto battle versus higher numbers, or some other things that we took into consideration. I don't quite know which we heard more of, or which was taken more into consideration in development, but I do know that it was absolutely a factor.
Yeah.
Was what can we change about auto battle to make it appeal to both new players and returning players? What can we change about the way damage is dealt, or player movement, like we've been talking about? Every new feature, every existing feature, that kind of consideration was taken into account.
Okay. And with regards to one of the new features in Disgaea 7, Hal mode. Now, that is very similar to previous Overlord abilities, only now it actually lasts longer in battle, and rather than being just a flat-out attack, as it were, you can gain some really special effects from that. Are you able to touch on any of those special effects right now?
Yeah, I mean, what I do like about Hell mode is, again, it takes into consideration the over-the-top nature of Disgaea. The animations with it are very over-the-top, especially Fuji's Divine Kansan. One of my favorites so far. But again, like you said, there's other mechanical things that it takes into effect. It's not just about looking cool or being over the top. It's also how does this affect gameplay? Like, for instance, what I do like about using it is that it unlocks that special attack for Fuji. You don't, if you're out of SP, you're not punished for that by not being able to use it. You know, it has a 0 SP associated with it, even though it is considered a special attack. And so this is something we didn't want to punish people for. Oh, you charged up your Hell gauge, you're able to use that now. Oh, but sorry, you're out of SP. Additionally, I do like that there's different ways in which characters that are able to use Hell mode can charge up that Hell meter in order to activate it. So for Fuji, for example, attacking units from behind charges it up quicker than like normal attacks would. And so I do like, again, how there's a level of consideration taken into how this works mechanically. How does this play into the way that Disgaea plays, how grindy combat can be sometimes, so that it's not just, yeah, eventually if I attack enough, I can use Hell mode, and Hell mode's cool. Now, how is it that you're attacking? If you want to use Hell mode quicker, okay, now that you've done that, when do you want to use it? Because it's such a powerful attack, do you want to save it for a little bit? Like, again, it's one of those features where I'm really glad that a lot has been taken into consideration in regards to developing it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Disgaea 7 is very different in one specific regard compared to previous Disgaea titles. And I know we actually briefly spoke about this a little earlier on, and that's that this time around, it's not a main character and a sidekick, essentially. This time we are playing as two main characters, each with their own main personalities, their own focuses during the story. And I'm just wondering if we're allowed to talk a little bit about that and get some more details.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, Fuji and Primalliquid are absolutely both dual protagonists in this game. They're true two protagonists, and that is a little bit different, like you said, than the kind of standard two main characters. But one is the protagonist and one is the sidekick or the accomplice. It was just time, I think, from what I've been told of the development. It just felt like it was time to introduce that to the series. And I think their characters specifically, I think it works very well because of how truly different they are. You know, Primalliquid, she is a huge believer in the Bushido Code, which has since been completely chucked out the window in the netherworld of Hinamoto for the Hinamoto Code of Destruction, which I think Fuji's a little bit more aligned with because he's a very kind of classic demon's demon. And so I always like that kind of dynamic where one character hires another, and he's like, well, I don't really care about what it is you want to do as long as you're willing to pay me. But it is kind of neat that their singular goal of like finding and tracking down all of the 7 founding weapons. There's reasons for both of them to want to do that, but it's how do they learn from each other, or how do they grow from each other, how do they not learn to grow from each other, because this is Disgaea. I'm, as a fan of the series, excited to see how that develops as you play further into the title. But I do think with how different these two characters are, I think the fact that they're kind of dual protagonists and they both have the same agency over the story, I think works very well in this title specifically.
Oh, for sure. I can definitely, even from the little bit that I've got to experience today, you can definitely see that connection both on a semi-serious side, but also on the humor side, which is definitely one of the big things that Disgaea is known for across the whole franchise, really.
Well, and it's fun because even Fuji has like nicknames for characters. Like he calls Perillica Piriko, and then C4 when she's introduced, he calls her Weapons Otaku. Because it's fun to see those little character traits kind of come through. And then they're good foils for each other too.
Yeah.
Like they could not be more different, and yet they're not forced to work together, but they find themselves in a situation where they're having to work together for the same goal. So how do they navigate that, both having their own reasons for doing so?
Yeah. And I know you just actually brought up character traits, which I think leads us to a slightly more interesting topic as well. So from previous titles, it was pretty much always demons and that sort of setting. So we go back all the way to the original with Lahal and Etna, Flon as the angel. Whereas in Disgaea 7, the characters themselves share a more sort of animal-based theme. So we've got Fuji with the antlers, we've got Pirika with the cat ears. Is there any sort of reason for this change, or was it just sort of how it came up to be?
That was a purposeful addition, yeah. That was talked about in development as well, from what I understand. That kind of theming some character designs off of that was important to the team. They thought it would be a fun character design, but it also kind of ties into the like feudal era Japan and the kind of mythical setting and tone that this title has specifically. Part of going back to our roots was incorporated into the setting, or the decision of the setting of this game as well, of that being feudal Japan, us being a Japanese developer. That was definitely part of the decision making of that process. And I think, from what I understand, the team felt it was kind of fun to focus on like a single netherworld with an aesthetic and a style that we haven't necessarily seen this prominently in Disgaea before, that being the kind of feudal era Japan. For instance, Ieyasu himself is like a literal shogun, like puppet shogun, to be fair. He's not the most authoritative figure, but all of that, the feudal era Japan, the having animalistic qualities built into the design of the characters, all of that was part of that kind of decision of going back to our roots, and was kind of, from what I understand, developed alongside each other.
Yeah. I will have to admit, I do think the animalistic designs do actually match the characters and also give them that extra flair. Because I know previously we had Valvatore as a vampire, Fenric based on a wolf, but even though aesthetically it was almost there, visually they were kind of similar to previous characters like Mao and so on and so forth. They didn't really go into that trait feature quite like we do now. Yeah,
this personally might be some of my favorite like individual designs in the series.
Oh, for sure.
Because they do feel a little, like you said, kind of unique compared to past titles.
Yeah, I have to fully agree on that. Like just the aesthetic appearance. I know we've recently gone from sprites to more 3D models, because I know that's where that was originally started in Disgaea 6. It's definitely been improved tremendously in Disgaea 7. Do you think 3D is going to be the way forward, or would it maybe go back to sprite eventually?
I believe so. I think moving forward with 3D is probably the most realistic outcome. That being said, to the point again of taking fan feedback into consideration, 3D was part of the reason 3D was kept around in this title specifically was because of jumbification. Being able to scale a character up of that size, it being a 3D model makes it a lot easier to do that and keep the visual fidelity of the character intact. And so there is still the thought of whether or not 3D or 2D is used. If 3D is going to be used again, let's make it, have some additional reasons for it.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, 3D is here to stay for the foreseeable future.
Okay. You mentioned jumbification. That is one of the new features in Disgaea 7. Can we talk about another new feature, and probably the one that I think everybody has the most questions about, Because, I mean, I played Disgaea 7 when it released in Japan. I have the Japanese version. I still don't understand this feature. But can we talk about item reincarnation?
Sure. So I know a little bit about it. The kind of broad strokes details. Essentially, like you can reincarnate characters in past Disgaea titles, which you can also do in this game. You can now reincarnate items as well. And the kind of tongue-in-cheek, over-the-top, goofy nature of Disgaea shines through in this feature in that you can turn like a spear into a pair of slippers, or like a sword into a ray gun. Like you can really get out there with the kind of things you can change one item from into another. But the mechanical part of that, again, is the fact that previous items' qualities and characteristics and traits are now carried over into the new item. And that new item, based on what it is, has its own qualities and characteristics and things that you can upgrade, its own upgrade path. And so it essentially allows you to kind of stack these qualities, these buffs, these traits, these characteristics from one item to another as you reincarnate it. You know, kind of playing into the previous reincarnation mechanics. So yeah, it's just, again, it's a very fun way to kind of customize and really put some time and effort and stats into individual items like you've done with characters in the past games, while also still fitting in with the goofy tone and over-the-top tone that the series is known for. So it has been one of my favorite features to kind of look into. Like you said, in the Japanese build, it is difficult if you don't see the kind of visual, like this is turning into this. But yeah, I know we didn't have it available in today's hands-on demo. It does come up a little bit later into the game than where we dropped you guys in, but it is another feature that we're excited about, and again was part of the consideration of giving players opportunities to play the game the way they want to, and to kind of get that that sense of progression and of what's what I'm looking for. Like, you know, you commit yourself to these characters and these items for so long, that sense of ownership over the things you're doing in the game, the items you have, the characters that you have in your party. So that was part of the continuation of a long-running kind of Disgaea staple.
Oh, for sure. With regards to, you know, we have all these different things now in Disgaea. We've got the normal character reincarnation, we've got item reincarnation, normal mode, carnage mode. We have the new ranked battles, PvP, which I think is absolutely amazing. In terms of actual playtime for all of these things, how long typically do you think the average person can probably get out of Disgaea 7?
I have heard that if you want to do everything, if you're one of those really dedicated Disgaea players who want to max everything out, get 100% in the game, it can take hundreds of hours. Similar to some of the past titles, it can take quite a long time. As far as average playtime, I think I want to say 40 hours or so, but I can get a better confirmation of that. But yeah, for those who are very dedicated, strap in. It's like as you've known it in past titles before. You can get a lot of mileage out of Disgaea 7 if you're really going to go down that item reincarnation path and character reincarnation path and maxing out your party, dealing tons of damage like you have in past titles.
I mean, for sure. It's like, I mean, I think I've got nearly 300 hours clocked on the Japanese version.
Nice.
And I don't speak Japanese, so a lot of the time I'm sitting there holding the phone with Google Translate.
That's smart.
But no, it's definitely the post-game process is still very much alive, which is truly great to see in a title such as Disgaea. I think one of the most important questions that I might get shot about if I don't ask is there any news on an English version of the demo? Because I know Japan did have one release and then the save transferred over. Will we get the same both here in Europe and in America?
I don't think I have anything to speak of on that at this time. That being said, as usual, just keep an eye on our social media platforms, on our newsletters. When there's news about the demo, those are the places that we will announce it first and foremost. But yeah, I don't think I have anything to speak of on that at this time.
Okay, no, that is perfectly fine. So we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled on Twitter, Facebook, as you said, the newsletters. I assume probably even the Disgaea 7 website will actually include information.
Yeah, keep an eye on the official websites as well, absolutely.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for sitting down and doing this interview. I know we've gone over quite a lot of information, and hopefully people are now going to get more and more excited for Disgaea 7. Just before we head off, though, is there any final words you'd like to say to everybody watching?
I'll just thank you for those who have stuck with the series for so long. You know, it's a very important series, obviously, to NIS, and we're very, very excited about what Disgaea 7 has to bring to the table. We really hope people enjoy it. It's definitely a return to form, or a return to our roots, as I'm sure you've heard a lot. And we do want to know that your feedback was taken into consideration during the development of this title, so we sincerely hope that you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
There we have it, everybody. You heard from the man himself. There is nothing to worry about for Disgaea 7.
The man himself.
But now, with that, everybody, thank you so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was really appreciative. And